Elicia Hughes and her husband Brian were living the American dream. Brian was a former member of the U.S. Air Force. Elicia was a beloved mother of two and one of the most respected teachers in her hometown of Jackson, Mississippi.
Elicia is a wonderful mom. She loves her kids. She's an outgoing, sweet person, very smart and intelligent.
She was like the high school beauty queen. She goes off to live a life with two daughters and is teaching school.
But on June 3, 2004, a flurry of gunfire put a sudden and horrific end to Elicia Hughes' storybook life.
Please help me, please help me, please help me. Ma'am? Somebody shot my husband.
He was shot 7 times, but the shot that actually killed him was the one to the chest.
You know, she's gotten her piece of the American pie, and all of a sudden, you know, her husband's dead.
But the search for an unknown intruder leads instead to the couple's bedroom.
A gun holster was found underneath the victim's bed, empty. No gun, just a holster.
A shocking arrest and a surprising legal controversy would leave everyone who followed the case wondering, would justice be served, or would a cold-blooded killer get away with the perfect crime? Of Jackson, Mississippi. As a child, Elicia preferred the company of the characters in her children's books to that of her peers.
She liked to read books, lock up in the room. She was a real quiet child.
By junior high, Elicia had distinguished herself as one of her class's top students. And by high school, she had the charm and good looks to go along with the brains.
Elicia was very friendly, very welcoming. Just a personality, just a warm personality that would draw you in.
And no one at Lanier High was more drawn to Elicia than Brian Hughes.
He was walking down the hallway, and it was the end of the day, and I was looking out the door, just, you know, waiting for the bell to ring, and he walked by, and then he kind of doubled back, and he started smiling at me, and he came into the classroom, and he sat down next to my desk, and we started talking.
During their senior year, Brian and Elicia were inseparable.
He was real spontaneous. He was just a fun person to be around. He wanted people to laugh and have fun when they were in his presence, and you felt that.
After graduation, Brian and Elicia enrolled at Jackson State University. Elicia immediately set her sights on becoming a teacher, and she wanted Brian with her every step of the way.
I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. I knew that I wanted to be a wife, and I knew that I wanted to be a mother. And, you know, beyond that, I never really had any, you know, greater expectations.
But after just one semester, Brian left college to join the Air Force. He and Elicia decided it was time to see other people.
They code a while and they break up. They code a while and they break up. And they kept going back together.
Although Elicia's romantic life had hit an unexpected roadblock, her goal of becoming a teacher was right on track. She got a bachelor's degree in education from Jackson State and followed that up with a master's from Mississippi College. She then landed a teaching position at a school on the outskirts of Jackson. It was her dream job.
Teaching is a hard job. You have to love it to want to do it. And seeing the little light bulb that goes off when they've, you know, got a concept, and that makes me feel like I've accomplished something.
Shortly after Elicia began teaching, Brian wrapped up his stint in the Air Force and took a job in Jackson as a machinist. Within a matter of weeks, Elicia and Brian's 8-year on-again, off-again romance was back on. On September 1st, 1999, Elicia gave birth to a daughter. 8 months later, in May of 2000, the former high school sweethearts tied the knot.
We got married at his parents' house outside, and had kind of a garden with it. It was beautiful.
Married life seemed to suit Elicia and Brian. They moved into a new house, and before long had another daughter. For Elicia, what started as a high school romance had become a storybook life.
We would go to family outings and events, you know, with my family and his family, you know, barbecues and things like that.
But Elicia's fairy tale family life was about to come to an abrupt and decidedly unhappy ending. On June 3rd, 2004, after a night out with his brother, Brian arrived home around 11 o'clock, locked the door, and set the alarm. He was talking to someone on the phone as he sat down in the living room. Moments later, the alarm on the Hughes front door was activated, triggering a call to the house from an ADT security dispatcher. Elicia Hughes answered. Fighting back tears, she told the dispatcher a harrowing story.
Good evening. Please help me, please help me, please help me. Ma'am? Somebody shot my husband. He's bleeding. Please, somebody. Okay, ma'am, I'm going to call the police right back. Please, hurry. Okay.
On June 3rd, 2004, at 11:26 p.m., investigators from the Jackson, Mississippi Police Department arrived at the suburban home of Brian and Elicia Hughes. Alerted by a security company after the alarm on the couple's front door had been triggered, the police found Brian Hughes in a puddle of blood in the den.
As you go inside the residence, right to the left of the foyer is the den. That's where the victim, Brian Hughes' body actually was at. There was a significant amount of blood.
EMTs tried to resuscitate Brian, but it was no use. They pronounced him dead on the scene, a victim of multiple gunshot wounds.
But he was shot in the chest area, the leg, and the groin. He had thrown his hands up in a defensive mode like, please, please don't shoot me. So he was shot in the hands, but the shot that actually killed him was the one to the chest.
Investigators attempted to secure the crime scene, but
we couldn't get to the house because there was so many police cars. They would not have seen until Brant's mother told him that I was Alicia's mother.
Between the cops, the EMTs, and the grieving friends and family, the scene was bordering on chaos. But fortunately, Alicia's young daughters managed to sleep through all of it.
The small children never woke up. They stayed in bed asleep.
To investigators, Brian Hughes appeared to be the victim of an attempted robbery gone awry. But when they tried to get a formal statement from Elicia to confirm exactly what had transpired, she was too distraught to talk. So that night, investigators granted Elicia permission to leave the house. She washed up, gathered her sleeping daughters along with an overnight bag, and headed to her mother's house. But not long after she left, the police began to suspect that something wasn't adding up. For starters, most of the shell casings from the murder weapon were found outside the Hughes front door, but all the blood evidence was inside the house.
There was no blood at the front door or in the foyer. All the blood was in the den where the body was.
Brian Hughes defied the laws of, Newton's gravity and managed to not bleed a drop from where he was supposedly in the foyer and to where his body was found in the living room.
The physical evidence suggested to investigators that Brian had been shot and killed not by an intruder, but by someone inside the Hughes home. But the police had no real reason to suspect Elicia Hughes until they looked under her bed.
A gun holster was found underneath the victim's bed, empty. No gun, just a holster.
The holster was made to carry a .45 caliber pistol, the same type of weapon used to kill Brian Hughes.
She was allowed to leave the home that night, and she took an overnight bag with her. No one searched it. Certainly she could have either taken the gun with her that night or hid it in the house that night and came and got it at a later date.
The police brought Elicia in the next morning for questioning. She claimed she was in bed asleep when her husband was shot. Police then tested her hands for gunshot residue, explaining that if the results of the GSR test came clean, it would officially rule her out as a suspect. On February 3rd, 2005, the results from Alicia's GSR test came back.
The state crime lab processed the gunshot residue, and they found gunpowder on her hand. which I believe the left hand.
But the results weren't exactly overwhelming. The GSR test revealed just a single particle of gunpowder on the back of Elicia's hand. It was enough for investigators.
Either you fired a gun, held a gun, or was close to when a gun was fired. Those are the only three reasons it would be on the back of your hand.
On March 8, 2005, Elicia Hughes was arrested and charged with the murder of her husband. On January 3, 2007, the state versus Elicia Hughes for the first-degree murder of her husband got underway. Even before it began, the trial was marked by controversy.
The defense had complained that the prosecution was striking mostly blacks from that jury, especially black females from that jury. And when it ended up, there was only, I believe, 2 black females on the first jury.
The prosecution opened the proceedings by telling the jury that Elicia Hughes killed her husband because she had learned he was having an affair.
Talking to people that knew Brian, certain people will make the comment that he was a cheater. He cheated on his wife.
To prove their point, they called Robbie Rayford to the stand. She not only admitted to having an affair with Brian, she also claimed she was on the phone with him just before his death, and that he wasn't alone.
Robbie Rayford took the stand and said, I was on the phone with Brian just a few moments before the shots happened, and I asked him, is your wife standing in front of you? And he said yes, and he had to go.
She knew more than likely that Brian was with the mistress, and I think it just absolutely infuriated her. And I think that's the night that she decided that she was going to get rid of him.
Then the prosecution went over the evidence established during the investigation, particularly the holster found under the bed and the gunshot residue found on Alicia's hand the day after the murder.
The gunpowder was on the back of her left hand, and there was no other way she could have got it on the back of her left hand. That's where you'd expect to find it when someone's fired a gun.
But the defense argued that the gunshot residue pointed not to Alicia's guilt, but to her innocence.
Understand, the evidence was that the person who killed Brian shot a .45 caliber pistol 8 times. There would have been GSR all over this person.
The defense said that Elicia could have easily gotten a small amount on her from touching her husband's body. But the prosecution wasn't done yet. Next, the state claimed that Elicia moved some of the shell casings to the front porch to bolster her attempted robbery story. And the way they were found was the giveaway.
If you stand at the door, find a weapon, a .45, the bullet gonna eject quite a distance, some feet. It's not gonna just drop right there where you were standing. So that was really, a big thing.
But the defense told the jury that with all that foot traffic in and out of the house, any number of people could have moved the shell casings.
You've got the entire family from both sides just coming through this house. They're all over the place. Obviously, it contaminates the crime scene.
With that in mind, Alicia's attorneys attempted to convince the jury that it was impossible to derive exactly where in the house Brian was shot based on the location of the shell casings. And they reminded the jury that the state's theory was just that, a theory. And that other than a tiny speck of gunshot residue, they had no eyewitnesses, no physical evidence, and no murder weapon. On January 9, 2007, the case was turned over to the jury. Coming up, the jury reaches a verdict in the Elicia Hughes murder trial. But will it stick?
That was a big issue. The composition of the jury, whether or not they were fair cross-section.
On January 9, 2007, after deliberating for about 2 hours, the jury in the Elicia Hughes murder trial announced they had reached a verdict. They found Elicia Hughes guilty of first-degree murder.
I remember standing for the verdict, and they said, guilty. And it was, almost like my ears were playing tricks on me.
The following morning, Judge Winston Kidd sentenced Elicia to life in prison.
When they said life, I thought I would die. I had no more feelings. It just seemed like the system was working against us.
But it wasn't over yet. On February 22nd, a little over a month after the guilty verdict, Elicia's attorney...
The judge reversed himself, which, according to the research that we've done, has never been done in the state of Mississippi.
That was the one thing that puzzled everybody, from the legal experts to the people that were just watching the trial. Everybody asked, how can he do that?
After serving 5 weeks in prison, Elicia was released on a $150,000 bond. 9 months later, on November 5th, 2007, opening arguments in the state of Mississippi versus Elicia Hughes Part 2 got underway. This time around, the jury looked more like one comprised of Elicia's peers.
It was made up mostly African-American women.
And it wasn't just the makeup of the jury that was different. Elicia's defense attorney, John Coletti, had brought in some high-powered help, Dennis Sweet. Right from the beginning, Sweet came out swinging.
This is what you call a circumstantial evidence case. After we evaluate the evidence, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna ask you to find Elicia Hughes not guilty of the murder of her husband.
With the defense now knowing our entire trial strategy, on the second trial, they geared their entire trial from opening statement on to disputing the validity of the evidence which was collected.
But there was more to the new trial than a new attorney and a new jury. After going back and interviewing the neighbors, Sweet found 2 witnesses who said they heard a car speeding away from the Hughes house right after the gunshots.
After you heard the shots, what did you hear anything else?
Shortly thereafter, I heard a car skid away.
I started knocking on doors, and I found 2 people that were there and heard the car pull away.
But you did hear a car pull off from that area?
I certainly did.
Sweet also put a lot more pressure on the police to admit that the crime scene was compromised by all the people coming and going from the house on the night of the murder, particularly when he questioned the lead crime scene investigator.
Charles Taylor is this crime scene guy. And he's just a matter-of-fact guy. You know, he's there to tell the truth.
Do you have the crime scene log for me?
No, sir.
Is there a crime scene log?
I don't know. As I was questioning him, I'd ask him his questions. This was done wrong. Yeah, it was. You know, and that was done wrong. You didn't follow the rules. No, it didn't.
Dennis Sweet, in the second trial, very charismatic, really played to the jury, tried to be real flip in his comments, would make fun of a lot of the things that people were testifying about, and really just tried to endear himself to the jury.
Closing arguments were made on November 16, 2007, and once again, Elicia Hughes' fate was turned over to a jury.
Only way that this lady could be convicted of murder is that each and every one of you have to vote guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Please don't. Elicia Hughes did not do this.
I guess the unknown intruder ran in, got Brian's gun, said, stand there for just a minute, let me shoot you 6 times, once in the groin. Let me run back out and no motion detectors go off. What man's gonna shoot someone in the genitals? No man's gonna shoot another man in the genitals, but a woman will.
Within 2 hours, the new jury had reached their decision.
I will read the verdict as the jury has handed to me. Will the defendant please stand? We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
They read the verdict and they were like, not guilty. And I was like, thank you, Jesus, thank you. And I think I screamed. And then I hugged each of my attorneys, and I was just so thankful, for that verdict.
You had a school teacher convicted of killing her husband, overturned, new trial, and then set scot-free. It was a good soap opera, put it that way. It was All My Children has nothing on this case.
And the case continues to be controversial. To Elicia's friends and family, there was no doubt the jury made the right decision.
the DA asked that the jury be polled, all 12 of them. So that means, every one of them had to get up and say, we're not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. And they all said it with a smile, and it just made us feel so good. It was just a blessing.
But to the police and prosecutors who worked the case, Elicia's not guilty verdict was not a blessing. It was a travesty of justice that can never be undone.
She could scream to this camera, I killed Brian, and so what? He deserved it, and we could never try her again, ever.
In the upscale Dallas suburb of Grapevine, few couples stood out more than 33-year-old Tracy Frame and her boyfriend, David Nixon.
Everybody knew the couple, a very striking couple.
But the sparks they gave off weren't always the romantic kind.
I'd heard like glass busting. One of them had busted out the side window of the house.
Finally, in the spring of 2002, Tracy's tempestuous 4-year relationship with David appeared to be over.
He had planned to move out. He had rented another house.
But after the evening of April 22nd, David wouldn't just be gone.
A Penske truck showed up, overnight.
He'd be dead.
The body had been wrapped in an electric blanket, a camping tarp, and set on fire.
Texas native Tracy Frame had a fiery temperament long before hooking up with David Nixon.
She could snap real quick if you pissed her off or throw little tantrums and things like that to kind of get her way.
Although the curvaceous brunette was accustomed to getting her way, particularly with men.
Tracy's the kind of girl that when she walked in the room, everybody knew she walked in the room.
David Nixon certainly noticed the bikini-clad Tracy when they met on the lake in 1998.
David liked the women. He liked to drink. He liked to party.
A high-rolling Dallas real estate agent in the middle of his second divorce. In many ways, David appeared to be Tracy's perfect match.
When he came into a room, everybody knew he was there. He liked to be, in the middle of things.
It was very active. I mean, he had sports that he liked to play, and, he was always constantly traveling.
That evening, David and Tracy shared a few drinks. Within days, they were dating.
It was a real rebound thing. He was married and his wife left him. A month later, he's got a new girlfriend.
The next few years were a whirlwind. Long days at the lake, fancy dinners, and frequent travel.
It was always trips to Mexico with Tracy. They were always going to Cancun and stuff.
Tracy did, however, have a rival for David's attention, his son, Nicholas. The boy lived nearby with his mother, David's first wife.
David was a great father. My son used to play with his kid all the time, and David's taking him to Main Event, to the rock climbing gym.
David doted over his son, but he spoiled his girlfriend, buying her a black Lexus to match his white one.
He was paying for her car, he was paying for her bills.
And after Tracy moved into David's $500,000 Grapevine home, he was paying for what technically became Tracy's home.
David had some trouble with the IRS and signed his home over to Tracy to protect the home from, any potential tax liens.
Once she moved in, however, friends and neighbors noticed a change in David and Tracy's relationship. They began to fight, mostly about money.
Out on my patio, our window's right there. So, we would hear fights and stuff.
She could be just insulting and, belittling.
By the spring of 2002, it began to look like David had had enough.
Tracy and David, they were heading for a split up. David had talked to attorneys trying to figure out how to leave Tracy and keep his rights in the house.
David also, in preparation for the inevitable breakup, rented another house.
He had some furniture in there, a lot of his clothes. He was planning to move out.
But before he had the chance, Tracy forced the issue. On the evening of April 9th, 2002, David came home and discovered she had changed the locks. Livid, he called the cops.
Can I get an officer to come to my house? There's a
about to be a domestic dispute.
Where at?
Pecan Hollow Court.
What's going on?
Well, basically it's my house. I was dumb enough to put it into my girlfriend's name, and she has now locked me out of my own house.
Police were able to resolve the problem, and David eventually got into the house. The next week and a half passed quietly. David stayed out of Tracy's way, keeping himself busy showing homes. So busy, apparently, that when his son phoned him on Friday the 19th, he never returned the call.
Nicholas repeatedly called him that weekend, and Mr. Nixon just wouldn't, or did not pick up or return calls.
By Sunday evening, with still no sign of David, his ex-wife started to worry.
I got a call from his ex-wife. She asked me if I knew where he was because she hadn't seen him all weekend.
Finally, a little before midnight on Sunday, David's ex-wife went down to the Grapevine police station and filed a missing persons report. The report itself was routine, but the resolution wouldn't be. Less than 3 hours after David Nixon was reported missing, a man was driving down the road in Grand Prairie, a Dallas suburb 20 miles south of Grapevine. Passing a drainage culvert, he stopped the car. Something was on fire.
He saw the blaze and notified an off-duty officer that was working security at a business nearby, and that officer extinguished the fire.
The fire out, the off-duty officer called for backup because wrapped in the charred remnants of a tarp and blanket was a badly burned body. Early on Monday morning, April 22, 2002, police in Grand Prairie, Texas, pulled the charred body of a white male from a drainage ditch on the edge of town. The body had no identification.
He was found wrapped in a tarp, and his body was burning.
A few hours earlier, and 20 miles to the north, David Nixon's ex-wife, Donna Lella, had walked into the Grapevine Police Department. She'd come to file a missing persons report on her ex and point the finger at David's girlfriend, Tracy Frame.
Donna Lella, his first wife, felt that Tracy was involved somehow.
But what exactly was she supposedly involved in? Had David just disappeared, or was there more? A little before noon, a report came over the teletype from the Grand Prairie Police. It was about the unidentified body they found the night before.
The physical description was one that could match. We weren't real sure. So we began to work on information that would help us to either identify the body as that of David Nixon or exclude the chance that that was David Nixon's body.
But until they did, the body was still unidentified. On Monday afternoon, detectives met with Tracy Frame at the house in Grapevine.
The police told Tracy that they were investigating David being missing.
Tracy,
making sure that we knew that it was her house and not David's house. We would make reference to, well, when's the last time David came home? She would correct us and say, well, this isn't his home, this is my home.
The next morning, police spoke with a neighbor who said he hadn't seen David in days, but said he had noticed something unusual on Sunday.
A Penske truck showed up there and it was backed up like right at the garage, and it sat there, overnight, and then it was back out front, and then it just disappeared.
What had been in the back of that truck? By that afternoon, police found a possible answer.
We were able to get dental records for David Nixon and compare those to that of the body found in Grand Prairie.
The dead man was David. And a preliminary autopsy report told police something else.
David had been shot through the side, through and through. The bullet had passed through both lungs and his heart.
An hour later, Detective Hallmark was back on Tracy Frame's doorstep. She took the news of David's death surprisingly well.
She had the response, well, how did you identify the body?
We kind of looked at each other like, I can't believe she just said that. And then she, put her hands up and began to sob.
Once Tracy calmed down, she accompanied Detective Hallmark to the Grand Prairie Police Department to make a formal statement. In the interrogation room, police asked Tracy about the Penske truck neighbors had seen parked outside the house.
Tracy said David had taken the bed with him and that she had to get another bed.
To pick up the bed, Tracy told police she'd rented the truck overnight on Friday evening. For confirmation, one of the detectives called the local Penske rental location. The story checked out, more or less. The clerk had a copy of the reservation slip for the truck and appliance dolly in Tracy's name. She also remembered Tracy and the white Lexus she'd left behind when she drove the truck off the lot.
She left David Nixon's car there. And the lady who waited on her remembered the car because it was such a nice car.
But police also learned Tracy couldn't have returned the truck on Saturday as she claimed. According to the clerk, it had still been checked out on Sunday evening when she dropped by the store around 9 p.m.
She happened to have gone to the feed store that night to feed her birds, I believe it was. And she said that the car was still there.
In the interrogation room, the detectives confronted Tracy about the clerk's story.
When you rented the vehicle, you said that you dropped it off Saturday night. Mm-hmm. However, the lady at the business was there Sunday evening at 9 p.m. and the car was still there. No, that's not true.
She also denied driving David's car, the white Lexus.
Everybody's lying to Tracy. That's not what I'm saying.
Tracy stuck with her story, and when she finished her statement, the police let her go. Although they were fairly certain she was involved in David's death, an arrest would require more evidence. A little before midnight, Grapevine police received a call from the manager of a local supermarket. He reported that a white Lexus had been sitting, abandoned in his parking lot since Sunday night. A quick check of the tags told police it was David Nixon's car. And fortunately for police, it was parked in plain sight of the store's security cameras.
We began to watch the video, in reverse to try and determine how his car got there.
What police saw on the tape was suspicious, to say the least.
Before his car arrived, there was a black Lexus that matched that of Tracy Frame. Before that, there was a yellow Penske moving van.
A Penske truck, which we know that Tracy had rented one, arrived on Saturday.
The black Lexus showed up on Sunday night.
A black Lexus parked near the Penske truck. A lady that looked like Tracy got out of it, went into the store.
A second security camera recorded her entering and exiting the supermarket. Then, on the tape from the parking lot, the woman could be seen driving away in the Penske truck.
She came back several hours later in the early morning hours of Monday, parked David's white Lexus there, and walked over and got in the black Lexus and drove away.
The timestamp on the security tape was 1:42 a.m. 38 minutes later, David's burning body would be found in Grand Prairie. On Wednesday, April 24th, police arrested Tracy Frame for the murder of David Nixon.
Everybody knew that she was behind it. It's up to the police now to just make sure she gets found guilty.
Coming up, the case against Tracy comes down to saving 19 cents. 36-year-old Tracy Frame was used to turning heads.
She was very powerful, confident in herself, beautiful girl. She demanded attention.
But when she walked into a Texas courtroom on the morning of March 1st, 2005, all eyes were on Tracy for a different reason. Charged with the shooting death of her boyfriend, David Nixon, she faced the possibility of life in prison if convicted. In a typical case, Tracy's looks would have given her an advantage.
A lot of people tend to judge defendants based on how they look.
But this time, the DA asked the jury to take a good look at Tracy Frame. Because according to the prosecution, jurors were about to see her on the videotape evidence crucial to the case.
Watching the video, we see a woman that we believe is Tracy.
The tape showed the same person driving the Penske rental truck prosecutors believed had been used to dispose of David's body.
In addition to renting the Penske truck, Tracy asked specifically for an appliance dolly. It's our belief that the appliance dolly was so that she could move David around, because David is a big man, 6'4", 240 pounds.
The defense tried to divert attention from the videotape by attacking David's character.
The defense attorneys were trying to say Mr. Nixon was not the all-American man, that he owed a lot of money to the IRS, and he always had a lot of money on him.
The defense also suggested there were others besides Tracy who stood to gain from David's death.
Prior to his death, he took out a life insurance policy for his son.
Tracy's attorney made a big deal that somehow pointed to his ex-wife.
After all, it was David's ex-wife, Donna Lella, who'd been so anxious to find David in the first place. She'd also, as the defense reminded the jurors, been quick to blame Tracy for his death.
The main focus of their case was that Donna Lella had a lot to gain from that.
But the prosecution claimed the only reason Donna Lella was anxious about David's whereabouts was because her son was upset about it. On March 1st, prosecutors called Nicholas to the stand.
He was 13 years old. He was very calm, but by the end of his testimony, he was in tears in recalling that he kept trying to reach his father.
The boy's testimony also provided the prosecution with a possible murder weapon.
David had a gun at his home, according to his son, Nicholas. He said that he had showed it to him once and that it was kept in a safe in the house.
But when police had searched the house after Tracy's arrest, the safe was empty.
Did it end up in the lake? Did it end up in a dumpster? Where did it go?
The prosecution admitted they didn't know. But the DA also pointed out that Tracy had had plenty of time to dispose of it over the weekend. And she'd apparently had plenty of time to clean up the crime scene, too.
They searched the house. They searched carpet. They did what you call luminol. And we didn't find anything.
On March 4th, prosecutors presented David's cell phone records to the jury. Several calls had been made after his disappearance. One call in particular was to a janitorial supply company.
When we contacted janitorial supply and asked them, did you receive a strange phone call on this afternoon? They said, as a matter of fact, we did. A lady called and was asking how to get out blood.
They told her about all these different products, but they told her what she really needed, if she needed to clean up blood, was probably muriatic acid, and that they did not sell it.
But the supermarket where the police had recovered David's car did carry the chemical, a common pool cleaner. Then the prosecution played another surveillance tape for the jury. It showed a woman in the supermarket checkout line, the same woman who minutes later would climb into the Penske truck and drive away.
She purchased a gallon of muriatic acid and a bag of large heavy-duty trash bags.
The video wasn't clear enough for a definitive identification. But the woman on the tape, according to the receipt prosecutors presented to the jury, had her supermarket bonus card to save 19 cents on the purchase. And the card just happened to be registered to Tracy Frame. The defense, when they started presenting their case on March 7th, focused not on the state's evidence, but on what the prosecutors didn't have.
The whole case was circumstantial evidence. There was never blood found in there. It wasn't like she held the gun or they ever found the gun.
And someone using Tracy's bonus card to buy muriatic acid, according to the defense, didn't automatically make her guilty of murder. For starters, Tracy did have a pool, so she could have had a perfectly innocent reason to purchase the cleaner. And as the defense pointed out, the prosecution had no proof she'd used the chemical to clean up David's blood.
We did not test anything in the home to see if muriatic acid had been used.
Was it enough to raise reasonable doubt? Tracy seemed confident.
She was somewhat jovial. I think she was just enjoying the limelight.
Although, acting on the advice of her attorney, Tracy declined to take center stage.
She didn't have to take the stand as the defendant, and she chose not to.
All eyes, however, were on Tracy Frame when she stood to face the jury's verdict on March 9th.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of the offense of murder as charged in the indictment.
She cried. I was surprised that she cried.
For David's friends and family, the guilty verdict was confirmation of what they'd known all along.
She killed him. Everybody knew. An admittance of guilt would be nice, but she would never do that.
I think that if you were just going to randomly kill somebody, you wouldn't go and methodically think out something that intense. I'm going to kill you, I'm going to wrap you up, I'm going to throw you into a ditch and burn you and leave you there. I mean, that's pretty calculating and well thought out.
On January 23, 2004, investigators from Salt Lake County, Utah, arrived at the Nevada ranch run by 43-year-old Linda Fields.
She had cows and horses, a couple ranch hands.
The police had come to inquire about one ranch hand in particular, a drifter named Jerry Polinsky. 2 weeks earlier, police had pulled Polinsky's body from Utah's Jordan River.
The medical examiner ruled the death a homicide.
The police were hoping Linda could help them solve the mystery of who killed Jerry Polinsky, and Linda was more than happy to help.
Linda Fields met us at the door with a manila folder full of documents related to Mr. Polinsky.
She was very cooperative with the police.
But that cooperation would come to an abrupt end when the police began to treat Linda not as a helpful citizen, but as a cold-blooded killer. California. After high school, Linda went to college, got married, and had 2 kids. She and her husband also spent several years as foster parents.
She loved children. She had a lot of special needs children that she cared for. Several children. I think at one point we had 12 foster children.
But problems in the marriage eventually began to surface.
She closed the foster home and went through a bad divorce.
In 1994, newly single, Linda moved with her kids across the state line to Elko, Nevada.
Mom wanted a new start. She was ready to have a change of pace, and she wanted a new life.
In Elko, Linda landed a job behind the bar of the Silver Dollar Club, a local saloon.
She was managing there. She had a lot of fun with the customers. She talked a lot with them.
One customer Linda spent a lot of time talking to was a miner and cowboy named Vern Fields.
Vern would come in there every night after work, and he finally talked her into a date, and they dated for a short time.
The couple married in 1995. Not long after, Linda and Vern moved a few miles out of town and took up ranching.
They rented or leased a ranch, Adobe Hills Ranch.
Linda did a lot of the inside work for as far as the book work and making sure that everything coincided. All the ordering was done for the ranch, for the wire and anything like that. And Vern pretty much took care of the outside.
But ranching was tough, and the couple was always on the edge of bankruptcy.
It's just hard in this day and age to make a living ranching unless you own the property. You know, there's land's too expensive, mortgage is too high, the overhead's way too much.
For help with the heavy work, the Fields turned to a series of hired hands, including a happy-go-lucky friend of Vern's named Jerry Polinsky.
They had met down in Arizona. They were both miners. He was a man of very, very little needs, you know. He didn't need much. Mr. and Miss Fields allowed him to live in a trailer on their ranch and paid him as they could for his day labor.
But every once in a while, Jerry would disappear from the ranch.
Mr. Polinsky would from time to time leave the ranch and travel to Utah where he had lived by hitchhiking and or by rail.
He was an alcoholic. From the time he would get off work until the time he would go to work, he would drink.
In January of 2001, while on one of his drunken binges, Jerry was arrested for DUI. And it wasn't the first time.
This was, I believe, the third DUI conviction for him. Under Nevada state law, he was convicted as a felon for his third DUI and was sent to prison.
Before he went to jail, Jerry asked Linda to look after his affairs, especially the retirement account he accrued as a minor.
He gave Linda power of attorney to pay his bills, and Linda took care of everything.
In October of 2003, Jerry was paroled and returned home to Linda's ranch.
One of the reasons he was paroled was because she gave him a place to live and a job to have.
Back at the ranch, Jerry settled into his old routine and his old drinking habit. In December of 2003, he disappeared again on what at first appeared to be just another 3-day binge. But by January 14, 2004, Jerry had been missing for nearly a month. That morning, 200 miles to the east of Linda's ranch, a man was walking along Utah's Jordan River. He'd come looking for birds, but when he trained his binoculars on the river, he spotted something else bobbing in the water.
It looked like the back of a human head, face down in the water. Our patrol deputies responded to the scene, and along with a search and rescue team, entered the water with a raft and a diver.
It wasn't the first time authorities had fished a dead body from that particular stretch of river.
There are
divers towed the body to shore. The police added one more homicide to the tally.
The victim had suffered multiple blunt force blows to the back of his head.
The dead man's name, investigators soon discovered, was Jerry Polinsky.
Found a wallet with several forms of identification. There was no indication that, he'd been robbed.
And that wasn't all they found in the dead man's wallet.
Within his wallet was the name of Vern and Linda Fields and a telephone number in Elko, Nevada.
On the morning of January 14, 2004, 200 miles east of Linda Fields' Nevada ranch, a birdwatcher had discovered a dead body drifting. On January 16th, Detective Brent Adamson spoke to Linda and Vern Fields by phone. They appeared to be shocked to learn that this time, Jerry had disappeared for good.
It was normal for him to disappear for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. Nobody ever thought anything about it.
They told the investigator they'd last seen Jerry on December 19th. But other than a little background information on Jerry, that was all Linda and Vern had for the authorities.
She knew Mr. Polinsky disappeared. She never saw him again. She has no idea what happened to him.
And when Linda went into Elko for a few beers that evening and spread the word that Jerry had been murdered, everyone who knew him was just as baffled.
She came into the bar where I was working and told me that they had found his body in Salt Lake in the river. And it was like, you've got to be kidding me. Who would want to kill Jerry?
The police, of course, wondered the same thing. But after a week of investigating, they were no closer to having an answer.
We spent the first week.
So on January 23rd, the investigators made the long drive out to Adobe Hills Ranch to have a look around Jerry's trailer.
We drove out unannounced and showed up and just knocked on the door of the Fields residence and made contact with both Vern and Linda Fields.
Both appeared eager to cooperate with the authorities, even if Linda did most, if not all, of the talking.
She dominated the questions. Even when a question was directed specifically to Mr. Fields, Mrs. Fields answered the question.
In addition to answering their questions, Linda gave detectives a folder full of documents pertaining to Polinsky's affairs.
She was genuine and willing to help us by providing us with these documents and forthcoming.
But even with all the help and information Linda had given them, the police were no closer to solving the case. But that was about to change. On February 13th, 12 days after his trip to Nevada, Detective Brent Adamson received what started out as a routine phone call about the Polinsky case from the medical examiner's office.
The medical examiner's office received a request for the death certificate.
The request came from the beneficiary of Jerry Polinsky's life insurance policy. But when the detectives got a look at the paperwork, the request was no longer considered routine. The beneficiary listed on the policy was Linda Fields, and the policy was worth $300,000.
I thought it was very suspicious. She seemed very meticulous about the things and the transactions between the two of them, and to have overlooked the fact that she had a life insurance policy seemed very odd.
Wondering what else Linda might have overlooked, the detectives spent the next few days digging a little deeper into Jerry Polinsky's finances. And they found plenty.
There was a lot of very suspicious financial activity that Mrs. Fields had conducted using her power of attorney.
She had embezzled quite a bit of money from him while he was in prison.
Police theorized that when the money ran out, she hatched a plan to kill him for the insurance money.
I think they were kind of in a situation where they couldn't make it. They had balloon payments coming up that they had to come up with, and they didn't have the funds to pay that.
The police believed they had found a motive, but the problem was they didn't have any evidence linking Linda or Vern to the murder itself.
The district attorney had reviewed that case, and I don't feel they felt there was enough evidence to support an indictment at the time.
For more than 2 years, the case hung in limbo as police continued to try to link Linda or Vern Fields to the crime.
I subpoenaed documents from bank records, telephone records, cellular telephone records, retirement accounts. So I spent a significant amount of time going through financial records trying to find some link.
Then, in October of 2006, police finally got the break they were looking for.
The Elko County Sheriff's Office calls, a detective from their office calls me, Kevin McKinney, and says, I have some people that have come to me and given me a statement.
The statement came from Linda's younger brother, Mike Walker. He and his wife had recently moved on to the ranch.
Linda and Vern put him in a house up on the hill that they said, you fix it up, you can live there.
But the arrangement didn't quite work out the way everyone had hoped. After a number of quarrels with his sister, including the threat of eviction, Mike and his wife decided to move out. But in the short time they had lived on the ranch, they heard some things they thought the police would be interested in.
He basically told us that he had overheard a conversation between Linda and Vern, and heard Vern say that we're going to get caught, and they're gonna know that we dumped the body.
On November 27, 2006, investigators from Salt Lake, along with Elko County Sheriff's deputies, drove back out to the Fields Ranch. And this time, they had a warrant for Linda's arrest.
We met Mr. Fields outside the front door. He actually ran back into the house yelling for Linda. We grabbed him, detained him, and then Mrs. Fields came out of a back room into the living area where she was taken into custody.
Linda was booked on charges of first-degree murder. Vern, however, wasn't taken into custody, at least not yet. Linda, as far as the authorities were concerned, was the mastermind.
She controlled and dominated her husband. She was very strong-willed and controlled all situations.
Even so, the state's case against Linda was not overwhelming.
There was no physical evidence whatsoever and no circumstantial evidence whatsoever, simply a motive.
Without some physical evidence or another witness, a conviction was anything but certain. Coming up, Linda's attempt to stay in control backfires.
Keep Vern as much as possible out of it. He's talking way too much, and it's going to sink me hard and fast.
On March 14, 2007, Linda Fields' murder trial began. She'd spent the past 5 months in jail, but her husband Vern, who authorities also suspected was involved, had not yet been arrested.
Linda was ultimately booked into jail, and Mr. Fields, we interviewed him for some time, collected a handwriting sample, and then transported him back to his residence. He was released at that time.
Linda walked into the courtroom confident of an acquittal, and she had good reason. The state's case was conspicuously absent of any meaningful physical evidence tying her to the crime.
They've searched the ranch, they searched the trailer that he was living in, and they haven't found anything. They didn't find blood. They didn't find hair.
His case may have been shaky, but the Elko County District Attorney didn't seem worried during opening arguments. The prosecutor presented the theory that Linda killed Jerry Polinsky after he discovered she had cleaned out his retirement account.
The motive was that he had confronted her and she decided he needed to be eliminated.
Detectives theorized that since Linda had Jerry insured for $300,000, she couldn't hide the body.
The body needs to be
taken the body to Salt Lake City and dumped the body into the Jordan River.
The defense, in its open, admitted the prosecution's theory sounded plausible. There was, however, one problem.
I promise you at the end of this case, you will not know the following. The state's own witnesses will testify they don't have a murder weapon. The state's own witnesses will testify they don't have any place of the murder. The state's own witnesses will testify they have no blood evidence.
But when the prosecutors started putting on their case, they did present more than theories. In fact, they had Linda herself on tape talking about the murder from jail.
When the inmates are in a cell block, there's a telephone in there that they can make outgoing calls. Every phone call is recorded.
On March 16th, prosecutors played the tapes for the jury.
It's very important that you do not talk or do not make Vern mad or make him pissed in any way, shape, or form. He'll bury me.
She gave you the impression that she knew exactly what had happened and that she was still controlling everyone and everything while she was in jail.
In other conversations, Linda had apparently even tried to get Vern to take the fall for her.
You definitely walk on a self-defense. Over there, not here. A bad fishing trick. I know that. I know that.
But while the police did have Linda on tape apparently trying to coax a confession out of Vern, they didn't have a confession from her.
She never came out and said it. She never once did that in the many, many hours and hours of telephone conversations that were recorded.
On March 22nd, a week into the trial, Linda took the stand in her own defense. She told the jury the calls were taken out of context, as was her handling of Jerry's finances. She explained that Jerry had authorized her to take money from his retirement account to pay outstanding debts.
Why did she take the stand? Because her story was true. She didn't have anything to do with his disappearance, and she didn't have anything to do with his death.
But what about the insurance policy? On the stand, Linda claimed she hadn't even known that she was the beneficiary until after Jerry's death.
She's contacted by the CUNA insurance people who indicate to her that she's been named as the beneficiary on a life insurance policy. At that time, she doesn't know the size of that policy.
In closing, Linda's attorney argued that prosecutors had not shown the jury any proof that Linda had killed Jerry Polinsky.
You have to show something other than motive. You have to show evidence that suggests the person was involved in the perpetration of the crime. You got to have some facts.
I couldn't see how 12 ordinary people on the jury, could believe without reasonable doubt that she did this.
On March 26th, the jury announced its verdict.
We have the jury duly empaneled to try the defendant, Linda Marie Fields, who hereby find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder.
And I just remember hitting the floor. Like I had breath taken out of me.
They had no physical evidence, even linking her to the crime.
In the end, according to statements made by a juror to the local newspaper, Linda's own words turned out to be all the evidence the jurors needed.
The telephone calls were really the ones that showed what they were trying to do, that I think convinced a jury.
Married to a Weld County, Colorado sheriff's deputy and working as a 911 dispatcher, 35-year-old Shauna Nelson enjoyed the excitement of law enforcement.
She really liked that kind of work. It was never boring.
And Shauna's personal life wasn't boring either. It was an open secret around the precinct that she was having an affair with a fellow officer.
It was the worst kept secret in Weld County, and everybody knew.
Then, on the evening of January 23, 2007, a call came in to Weld County 911. A woman had just been gunned down outside a local credit union.
The assailant allegedly said, "You ruined my life," and shot her twice in the head.
And this time, as dispatch sped officers to the scene, it wouldn't be Shauna's voice that came crackling across the radio. It would be her name. And raised in Greeley, Colorado by her aunt and uncle.
Her biological mother had realized that she couldn't take care of a child, and so she gave Shauna as an infant to her sister.
She was biologically my aunt's child, and my mom and dad adopted her.
Shauna always knew she was adopted, but she was 12 before she discovered her birth mother's identity.
She couldn't understand how any parent can turn their back on their kids, not want to be a part of their lives. That's what she didn't understand.
After graduating high school in 1989, Shauna landed a job as a Weld County 911 dispatcher. In 1995, Shauna began dating Weld County Sheriff's Deputy Ken Nelson. The couple married in August of 1996 and soon had 2 kids.
She's an excellent mother. She's got a great sense of humor.
Shauna kept her job as a 911 dispatcher. Not only did she like the excitement, by then she had made lots of friends at the sheriff's department. One of her closest friends was a young sheriff's deputy named Michelle Moore.
She and Michelle Moore were friends, inseparable friends.
Michelle often hung out at the Nelson house. Other times, the 2 women went out for drinks, usually with other deputies and dispatchers.
Everybody in law enforcement knows everybody else. It's kind of a tight fraternity.
In 2004, when Weld County and the town of Greeley consolidated their 911 operations, Shauna met a Greeley detective named Ignacio Garris.
He was a pretty gregarious guy. People seemed to like him. His colleagues seemed to like him.
And Ignacio certainly seemed to like Shauna.
Ignacio started coming to the dispatch center where she worked more and more, basically just to be with her and talk with her.
By July of that year, their co-workers began to suspect that Shauna and Ignacio were doing more than just talking.
Co-workers knew they were having an affair.
While the relationship may have been an open secret at work, it wasn't until months later that Shauna's husband Ken learned about the affair. In January 2005, the Nelsons separated. Ken filed for divorce while Shauna moved into an apartment with the kids. During the separation, Shauna began spending more time with her best friend, Michelle Moore. She also continued her affair with Ignacio. But unlike Shauna, Ignacio wanted to hold on to his marriage. He did everything he could to keep his wife Heather from finding out. In fact, her co-workers considered him a model husband.
Ig would bring her flowers. He would bring her balloons. He never missed an occasion. And we were always envious and jealous and all wanted to clone him because we thought, this is the perfect spouse.
But things got a little more complicated in July of 2005 when Shauna discovered she was pregnant.
Ig told her he didn't want to have any part of the baby.
Shauna was pretty adamant she was not going to have an abortion.
Angry at Ignacio's reaction, Shauna went back to Ken and tried to patch things up. After 5 months of separation, Ken was ready to put the affair behind them and give their marriage another try. And that wasn't all.
She told him that she was going to raise the child, and it was at that point that Ken said, well, why don't we stop the divorce proceedings and I'll agree to raise the child as my own.
When the child was born in 2006, Ken began looking into adopting him. But the relationship between Shauna and Ignacio, as everyone would soon learn, was far from over. In December 2006, Shauna told Ignacio she was hiring an attorney to have his parental rights terminated.
Heather had told us that he was more than willing to sign anything he needed to sign to sever his relationship with the child.
A little more than a month later, at around 6 o'clock on the evening of January 23, 2007, Ignacio's wife Heather walked out of the Greeley, Colorado credit union where she worked.
She left with a group of co-workers. They were laughing, joking, headed out towards their cars.
The laughter ended once they reached the parking lot.
They saw this shrouded figure dressed in black with the Grim Reaper mask.
The person behind the mask pointed a gun at Heather Garrison and said, you're the one I want. Get on your knees, get down.
Then, as her co-workers watched, the Grim Reaper put the gun to Heather's head.
The assailant then said, you've ruined my life.
Coming up, news of the shooting leads to a showdown.
He started yelling at her, get out of the vehicle, what have you done?
At 6:15 p.m. on January 23, 2007, a call came into the Colorado 911 center. A woman had just been shot outside a local credit union.
Where is the person that was shot? On the ground. Is it male or female? Female. Heather Garage, her husband's a cop.
When officers arrived on the scene, they found Heather in a pool of blood in the parking lot. 2 gunshots to her head had killed her instantly. The witnesses told police they knew exactly who killed her.
In my mind, immediately thought Shauna. She was the only person that could have possibly done or had the motive to do anything.
Heather's co-workers told police that about a month ago on December 16th, Heather had found out that her husband was having an affair with Shauna Nelson.
He had been drinking and proceeded to tell Heather basically everything, including the fact that the child was his.
Ignacio and his wife had a very long heart-to-heart talk, decided to make their marriage work.
Step 1, end the affair with Shauna.
Ignacio Garris called in his wife's presence and broke off the relationship.
He also told Shauna if she had anything to say to him, she should contact his attorney. Shauna was furious.
She realized that she was not going to fulfill what she felt her destiny was, for her and Ignacio to live together with their child. And so I believe at some point she snapped.
Soon after, according to what Heather told her friends, Shauna had started making threats.
She'd sent communications to Ignacio Garris: "You broke my heart, you to me, be prepared."
Shauna had also sent threats to Heather.
There were emails, there were voice messages indicating anytime, anywhere, bitch.
At the time, according to her coworkers, Heather hadn't taken the threats too seriously.
She was afraid that she might try to slash her tires, but never was she afraid that Shauna would attempt to hurt her.
Meanwhile, as police continued to take the statements of Heather's coworkers, a call went out from the Weld County Dispatch Center.
The call came over the radio that they were looking for Shauna Nelson as a suspect.
Ken Nelson was at work in a squad room briefing when dispatch announced that his wife was a murder suspect.
As soon as he heard, he got into his vehicle with his partner, and then they sped off towards home.
Approaching 19th Street, that's when Ken Nelson saw his vehicle, his personal vehicle, heading towards him.
Shauna was behind the wheel.
Ken Nelson made the turn onto 19th Street, stopped, jumped out of the driver's side, and was standing in the roadway as Shauna Nelson then turned onto 19th Street.
Shauna skidded to a stop next to her husband.
Ken Nelson started yelling at her, "Get out of the vehicle, what have you done?"
Moments later, Greeley police arrived and took Shauna in for questioning. They also searched the pickup.
The mask was found underneath the seat in Nelson's truck.
That night, in a Greeley Police Department interrogation room, Shauna denied any knowledge of Heather's death. Instead, she claimed that she'd merely driven Ken's truck to the liquor store.
You left what time to go to the liquor store?
Oh, God. I don't even know. I guess it was... It only takes a couple minutes. I don't know. I wasn't really gone that long. I was probably gone, it was like maybe 6:05.
Shauna denied she'd been anywhere near the credit union. In fact, she denied even knowing who the victim was.
Do you know who the victim is in this?
I don't know.
It's Heather.
The interrogation over, Shauna was charged with first-degree murder. Greeley police spent the next several days questioning Shauna's friends and associates. They didn't have far to go to find them.
Everybody except for the victim in this case worked for either the police department or the sheriff's department.
Ignacio Garris, when questioned, confirmed what Heather's coworkers had already told his fellow detectives about Shauna's threats. Investigators also questioned Shauna's best friend, Sheriff's Deputy Michelle Moore.
We all believe that Michelle Moore, who was a very close confidant of the defendant, had more information.
But if Michelle did know more, she wouldn't share it with investigators, at least not at first.
Michelle Moore says she never witnessed any animosity from Shauna Nelson towards Heather Garris.
As the trial date approached, prosecutors built their case assuming that Michelle would be testifying for the defense.
Michelle was going to back Shauna up on this.
But with all the other witnesses and evidence, they were confident they could prove their case.
I felt we had a very strong case even without Michelle Moore.
But in November, with the trial just days away, prosecutors surprised everyone by asking for a postponement. And that wasn't the only surprise. Michelle Moore had suddenly switched sides and was now going to testify against her best friend.
When that was revealed that she was going to switch sides, that raised a lot of eyebrows.
Coming up, Shauna Nelson raises even more eyebrows when she tells a stunned courtroom that she and Michelle were more than just friends.
I was driving Michelle home and told her that I no longer could have a sexual relationship with her.
Shauna Nelson had originally been scheduled to stand trial in November of 2007 for the murder of her lover's wife, Heather Garris. But at the last minute, the state had asked for a postponement and change of venue.
As we were coming up to trial, there was some further communication, and we had a huge bombshell.
Shauna's best friend, Michelle Moore, was the one who had dropped the bombshell.
Michelle changed her story and said that Nelson and her had discussed this murder in length, that they had talked about basically conspiracy to kill Garris.
Prosecutors charged Michelle Moore with conspiracy to commit murder, but they also made her a deal. Testify against Shauna and she'd serve a maximum of only 9 years on the conspiracy charge.
Michelle Moore faced some serious charges. I'm sure she probably felt like she had to do whatever she could to get herself out of that situation.
Shauna, facing a first-degree murder charge, was in a far worse situation. There were no deals on the table for her. If she was convicted, she faced a mandatory sentence of life in prison.
In Colorado, that means life without the possibility of parole. You are in there for the rest of your natural life. You are in there for the rest of your natural life.
The trial began on February 21st, 2008, and according to the prosecution's opening statement, the state had plenty of evidence tying Shauna to the crime.
Within 15 minutes, she was found driving her husband's truck with a mask underneath the seat.
On the second day of the trial, prosecutors called Ignacio Garris to the stand. In his testimony, he walked the jurors through the various threatening messages Shauna had sent for his wife.
And what does it say?
It says, Heather, if you're reading this, you're a psycho bitch.
Okay. And what does the next one say?
It's to my wife's cell phone again. And it's anytime, anywhere, bitch.
To explain how Shauna acted on those threats, prosecutors turned to their star witness, Shauna's best friend, Michelle Moore.
She had said that she could just drive down to the credit union where she worked and she could just shoot her.
Michelle also admitted to helping Shauna plan the shooting.
With Moore being a law enforcement official, Nelson would oftentimes ask her how she could cover up this crime.
I told her at one point that the person would have to disguise himself.
Did she ever indicate anything regarding a disguise to you?
She said that she has a mask and a black robe.
It was damning testimony, but the defense had a star witness of its own, and the trial was about to spin off in a whole new direction. On February 28th, the defense opened its case by arguing that the Greeley police, all too familiar with Shauna and Ignacio's affair, had focused on Shauna to the exclusion of any other suspect.
Did Ignacio Garris have a motive to get rid of both Heather Garris and Shauna Nelson out of his life for financial reasons or for some other reason? I don't know. It wasn't investigated. Did Michelle Moore have a motive to get back at Shauna Nelson.
When she took the stand the next day, Shauna answered that last question with a yes. She recounted a conversation she claimed to have had with Michelle just days before.
I brought Michelle home and told her that I no longer could have a sexual relationship with her.
That took everybody by surprise. People were taking notes, and all of a sudden, heads kind of popped up.
I told her I loved her, and that I still wanted to remain friends with her, but I couldn't keep lying to Ken.
According to the defense, it was completely plausible that Michelle killed Heather in revenge and then tried to frame Shauna for it.
Had, to your knowledge, Michelle Moore seen that mask?
At least on 3 separate occasions.
It was news to us that the reason Michelle Moore was now claiming the thing she was because she was a spurned lover.
On February 29th, the case went to the jury. 3 days later, they announced they had reached a verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Shauna Louise Nelson, guilty of count number 1, murder in the first degree.
When they read the verdict, she just sat, stone cold sober. Didn't flinch, no emotion, no nothing.
The verdict left the combined forces of the Weld County Sheriff's Office and the Greeley PD shaking their heads and looking forward to getting back to catching criminals outside the precinct's doors.
Whatever forces drive Shauna to do what she did, and I don't think anybody can ever understand that.
Everybody thought of her as kind of a small-town version of Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction.